You mentioned something earlier that was very interesting to me, actually. You said take your rightful place in your family system. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that? And what does that mean when we are not in our rightful place?
Yeah, a great example that I always give is somebody who comes and has major relationship problems and says, I haven't been in a good relationship in the past 10 years, if any, or have never been in a great relationship. And I've been, going through 9 relationships in the past year, let's say. I'm exaggerating to make it more obvious, the example. And so when we look at the family system, often what we see, depending on the dynamic and who the client is, the kind of typical dynamics that we often see within that is that the client, the person, the seeker, has taken on the place of the other parent. So let's say one of the parents wasn't much around, or they didn't even maybe know them, or they left the family when the client was a baby or something. So what happens very often, they take the place of the other parent. This could also be if the parents are still together, by the way. Yeah. It's just like one is clearly not as present as the other and has maybe extracted themselves a little. And so the client starts taking that place. And what happens is they become, of course, way too big for their size. They're all of a sudden not the child anymore, but they're now almost like partner level with their other parent. Yeah. That doesn't have to play out this way on this plane, but energetically, that's what's happening. Systemically, that's what's happening. And so all of a sudden, who is now on the partnership plane? It's not a partner, it's your parent, right? This is like the typical, when there's the saying like mommy's little boy, daddy's little princess, like that kind of dynamic that we know, like in colloquial language. That is what that means, is that there is no place for a partner because it's occupied with your parent. Now, some of you might now be like, oh, this is what's happening. That's very often the case. And so by re-looking at that dynamic and actually bringing in the parent that has been maybe pushed out, maybe everybody's mad at that parent because they left, and maybe rightfully so. But we have to find systemically a way to give them back their rightful place so that the client can take their rightful place as the child and not as the other parent. This is a great example.
When you do that in the family constellation setting, that happens in real life energetically? Is that what that means?
Yeah. So the way this works, I mean, again, from what we know, I can't tell you exactly how it works because it's energies. What do I know? But from like doing this over and over and over again in so many different ways and shapes and forms, how this works, we think, is that, again, the ripples effect, if we go back to my image with the ripples, you are initiating movement on a soul level that then starts rippling out onto this plane. And quite often pretty immediate. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it takes a while to settle in. But yes, I would say much more so than not, you will definitely see. And usually, again, it's not about like promising anything, but that's in our observation, you will see a shift because you have started shifting that dynamic. And now there's a deep inner, almost soul awareness. It's not just here. The big difference is that we don't just work here. Yeah. So it's sometimes good to have awareness and talk about things. Very, very important. Very important. That's like step 1 often. But now we have to get that awareness in here. Yeah.
So you said it has a long-term effect, but can it be for life? Can it be for good? Somebody get healed from their past wounds and traumas for good?
It can happen. Sure, it can happen. Does it always happen? I don't know. Because also I have not watched a person through their whole life. I think you can just do a lot of really deep shifting that is benefiting you. And that usually stays because once you have experienced those images, I mean, we're working with images here. Yeah. So once you have experienced these images and where, even stepping into them maybe, or even just like looking at them, you can't unknow. It's like, telling you about a certain topic and you read about it and you can't unknow once you know. It's just, but this is experiential. So it's just your soul will remember this, will remember these movements. And that's why they're starting to ripple out also, because we have kind of opened up some of these energies and these entanglements. It's like if you think of like wool, curled up in a ball,
Right.
and it's just like super untangled. And we're just like, we're starting to pull a little bit on the strings, and all the little knots are slowly coming undone. And all of a sudden, it's like this very clear line. That is where your strength is. Yeah.
Absolutely. What is forgiveness to you? How do you describe that?
Wow. Oh, this is such a tricky point. Oh God, this could be a whole podcast.
Let us start with
I'll do my best.
forgiveness.
I'll do my best to
No,
hone it.
take your time. We
It
have
might
all the
be
time.
confusing, but I'm gonna open that box since you're asking. Okay, so we don't work with the word forgiveness. That's gonna be my intro. Now everybody's gonna be like, what does that mean? Why? Okay, so the reason why forgiveness is a word that in itself, if you just feel yourself into that word, it means that there's a bit of an owing, like somebody owes somebody something. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I have to forgive you because you have done wrong, right? So there is a little bit of I deserve something back. There's a bit of a an open debt in a way. Now, it does work better when those two people are equals, let's say partners, yeah. But even there, it can be very tricky because again, you keeping that dynamic of one bigger than the other, yeah. It definitely does not work towards parents. And now some of you will scream, and that's okay. I hear the protest. Now, a parent, a child cannot, and this might be an adult child, the seeker, let's say the client, cannot forgive their parent. The reason that's why we're not working with the word forgiveness. Now, of course, a parent might have done something terribly wrong, and the client is totally allowed to be, let's say, really pissed off at their parent. But what forgiveness does, it kind of reverses what it does again. It makes the child very big and the parent small. And so if I say, I forgive you, that always comes a little bit from an up to down perspective. If you sense into that word a little bit, it's like, I forgive you. Yeah. There's like a little bit of that if you just feel into it. And of course, that dynamic can never work properly in the families. It's not going to serve you in the long run. Yeah. So again, if it comes to abuse and such, that works differently. And when there's like physical abuse, sexual abuse, of course, there's very different ways how we can work with that systemically. They are also incredibly effective. I'm not going to open that, but that's, of course, we would tackle that a little differently. There, it is important that the, let's say, perpetrator, the person who has harmed, let's say it's the parent, takes responsibility, yeah, owns what they did. That is kind of very, very important step for the healing process. And we can do that in a constellation. We can set that up, and that will usually relieve quite a lot. But generally speaking, and they can say, I'm sorry that I hurt you. Yeah, that is, there's a different dynamic of then, of course. But let's say, you're just mad at your parent and there was no abuse per se, other than, maybe you have sensed that they've treated you unfairly, etc. But you just being mad at your parent and wanting them to forgive them, so to speak, that it's not going to serve you if it's almost like a little bit with an attitude. Yeah. And again, sometimes it feels in your system that that's what's needed. Like that's only just, yeah. I totally understand that. I'm not saying that the parents are always right or whatever. It's just that we have seen with this work, it's only going to serve you if you are taking your rightful place as towards your parents. You will always be the child. That's just the way it is, simply because they gave birth to you, or at least one of them. Yeah, it's just there is a bit of a family hierarchy simply because these people came first, these people came last or second. And if you go against that hierarchy, it energetically, you're gonna hit walls. And that's why forgiveness is tricky. We would say more words like, I'm sorry that I hurt you, I can see you, I can see your pain. Those are things that are more healing. Those are more opening words. But forgiveness it's a tricky one.
That is very interesting, the way that you say. So basically, with the example that you said, that you showed, so the parent has to you always have to look up to your parents, not look down. Because
Yes, because in your systemic, and this doesn't, maybe in your actual life, your mom is like this short and you're very tall, that is okay. But that might also be, maybe an outcome of your system, maybe telling you something like, You've been clearly put into this very big position and you're looking down on your mom. It's also interesting. Sometimes there's very, very tall people and that's exactly their struggle. Yeah. Or there's very, very short people and they, it depends solely on the person. But so when you energetically in your system look down on your mom, that just means that you are not in your rightful place yet. But you can work with that. Yeah, we can work with that, particularly in this work. And so reclaiming your rightful place as I'm the small one, you are my mom. And this, no matter how difficult your mom is, no matter how, or your parents, I take the mom as an example, but no matter how difficult your parent is, no matter how you think maybe childish your parent is, and you feel you are so mature and they're so immature, no matter how much that dynamic is, the healing first lies within saying yes and acknowledging, okay, these people gave life to me. Like that is a big deal. And that's a debt I can never pay back. So I might not even try because it's not possible. That is the gift of life is too big of a debt to repay. So you can't get into this like battle with that. So you might as well just accept life and be like, whew, thank you for giving me my life. I often give the phrase, I'll make something out of it. This is a very constellation-y phrase. Thank you for giving me my life. I'll make something out of it. And then you're walking actively into your life because you have also accepted your parents within yourself. All of what we're doing is we're working with how are your parents inside yourself, which is why we're working from you. So when you come in, all these soul images that we're setting up, it's how are these people inside of me? How is my mom inside of me? How is my dad inside of me, as an example? Yeah.
So insightful, very, very deep, and it's just amazing. So amazing.
I love this work. It is it is amazing.
Such an amazing work. It just has such power. It offers you such freedom and enlightenment. You become so light and in the ways you cannot even describe it yourself. I mean, as the person who, experiences it. But there is something very powerful to it.
Yeah.
Something very powerful to it. I mean, I had so many questions, but you like explained everything so beautifully, and so everything was so connected to each other. I'm just skipping over my questions. For those who want to actually try this, who haven't tried family constellation work before and are curious about the work, how do they reach out? How do they find the workshops? How do they take the first step?
Yeah, I think there's basically a group setting which can either be in person or even virtually. People calling from or are not located, let's say in New York, and want to attend a workshop with me in New York. There are in-person group settings, which is kind of the traditional way, as in this is how it was developed. And there's also one-on-one settings. So there's people who are like, I'm not comfortable, sharing all of this in a big group. I don't feel good about that. Can I do a one-on-one? Yes, that is also possible. The way I work in a one-on-one setting, again, this is totally different for each facilitator. Each person works quite differently. I do a guided meditation setting. So we're doing the setting up of the representative, so to speak. We're doing that internally. Yeah.
Right.
So that's how I work one-on-one. And so I would say if you are comfortable in a group, I would definitely go check out the groups as well, because I think that's it's just really magic. There's something so powerful and magical about it. If that is like totally not your thing, one-on-one is equally efficient, equally great, and totally works. And yeah, it's just a little bit of a preference thing. But if you want to if you're also curious about the work itself, I think at least attending one or two or multiple group sessions is definitely something I would recommend because it's really cool.
Do you have to be gifted to become a facilitator yourself?
Gifted. Wow. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So that's a tricky word again. I don't know. I think it's being a part of this practice. It takes a long time,
Mm-hmm.
And I tell this to my students a lot too. We have, particularly as New Yorkers, we have this pressure of, we just finished a training. We now, we have to go out and like do 17 workshops and just be on top of everything. And everybody's terrified because they're like, oh my God, this still feels fairly new. Some are very seasoned already, but like some are like, oh my God, how do I get started? Because this is a lot. And I totally understand, because everybody will be in that position when you start. But also knowing that you're actually just at the beginning of that journey. So now you have a lot of like knowledge and absorbed, and have like enriched yourself with all this knowledge, also internally, but also up here, of course, a little bit. But like, of course, I've internalized that. And now you can go out, but it's a little bit just like the very beginning of your journey, because this work, you could easily really for a lifetime. Like, I'll never stop learning with this. I'll never get not surprised by this. I mean, I've been doing this again, most of my life, at least like being in it, in and out of it, and then also facilitating, of course. But so it's like, it's less about being gifted. It's maybe more about being willing to go on a very, maybe a journey of the unknown. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a little bit, you're really like starting on a path where you don't know where it's going to lead you. And that's okay. Really, as life is. I keep saying that this work is so close to life. It's just, to me, one of the closest things to life, because it just really, but it shows you so deeply the essence of life, really, in so many different ways. And I think that's fascinating. But in a way, these are always like big improvisations as well. And that doesn't mean you don't need the skills and the skill set to hold that container. Quite the opposite. Let's say any musician knows, any maybe even actor knows, yeah, that doing an improvisation is one of the hardest things ever. You need to be actually really in tune with what's going on to be able to improvise.
And be present and listen.
All the time, because you cannot control this energy field. You cannot control it. And this is also why it's tricky to like teach that, but it's not so much about that. It's more about how can we engage in kind of honing the skill of listening and absorbing these different dynamics and seeing and experiencing them, which is also, for example, why my workshops are part of the training, so that you really also get to be in that without having the spotlight on you. It's more like, okay, cool. This is the next step. This is another step. Why did she do this? Like, that's how the more we are in the field, I think the more we become skilled at it, because you're honing a skill of listening. It's like ear training or something.
Right. Amazing. Those of us who are not trained actors or trained listeners, and they run their lives in different professions, and some live in big crazy cities like ours, with a lot of distraction, a lot of noise, a lot of things that are going on like on a moment basis. How do we learn? Can you suggest like if couple of techniques that we can start practicing and learning how to be present in the moment, and how to listen effectively in order to be able to respond effectively and accordingly?
I think this will be maybe very individual. Maybe identifying what are the moments where I feel the most present? What are the moments where I feel the most aware? It's really like an awareness practice, right? Like, what is presence? Presence is I'm aware and I'm here. So obviously, like, probably this device here is not going to help you so much in that. Maybe that's a good first step to practice. What kind of soundscape am I around, right? Like, if I walk outside, how many layers of sound can I hear? How many things do I see? Can I spend, I don't know, an hour looking at a tree? And seeing all its little details and not get bored. I think in terms of our attention span, that is shortened and shortened and shortened because of all the short little clips and videos and that we constantly feed ourselves. And it's, tricky not to in this day and age. How can we re-practice patience and attention and awareness? So you can do that on your way, like if you're let's say if you're in New York, on the subway. Yeah. Instead of maybe pulling out your phone, how about you just sit there and observe people? Like, I sometimes love doing that. People ask me, do you have a meditation practice? And I wish I could be very fancy and say, yeah, I sit every morning for at least, 20 minutes and have this deep meditation practice. I wish I could say that. I wish I was like that good. Really, to me, my maybe meditation practice is I love sitting on the subway and just letting things move by me and just taking that in. I think I'm in like a total meditation state when that happens. And I know it's maybe not ideal and maybe I'm cheating but like, to me, that is being in meditation. I find that super fascinating. And again, so for each person, it will vary of identifying very aware and
Lovely. Thank you so much, Lisa. This was a pleasure. I learned so much, as I always do, from you. You have such an amazing energy and wisdom and light. And I really encourage everybody to check out your work. Could you please let us know where we can find you?
Yeah, thank you so much. You can find me at familyconstellationsnyc.com, just all spelled out. Yeah, that's my website. You can find me there, and Luisa Muhr Healing Arts. You find my email there. You can contact me there. You can sign up for a newsletter if you're curious, and all my upcoming events are listed there, the ones that are confirmed. And I usually do, if you're in New York, I usually do 2 in-person workshops a month at Ohm Center on the Upper East and at Balance Arts Center in Midtown Manhattan, and 1 virtual workshop that anybody can join from all over in Eastern time zone, but you can, whatever time zone is, you can convert it. And one-on-one is also an option, in which case you would just reach out to me. And yeah,
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you
please
so much,
find
Lisa.
me. Also, I know this is always a promotional thing, but if you want, you can also follow me on the socials, also at familyconstellations.
To be in touch and to get to know the latest event that you are throwing.
Yes, I always post there. It's sometimes nice to have like a visual, like because I post these little posters and you just have the visuals of like, oh, this is happening next. I sometimes find that helpful.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for you. Thank you for everything that you do. And I hope I will see you soon.
Yes, we shall see each other soon.
Bye.